Well, everyone, the last time we looked at the Thomas Wind-Up series in Australia, that is, we only had these items available. But since then, things have changed. And these changes aren't just ordinary changes. Now we've got extraordinary large available products. With the addition of Thomas Play Rail Part 3. But where's Part 2? We'll explain to you that later. But there's something even more than that. And you know that something strange is certainly going on when strange imported toys are coming over to Australia. And then you really start asking questions. Because look at these. Japanese Thomas Wind-Ups. And no, not just one series, but 2 series of Japanese wind-ups are now being found in Australian gacha vending machines. So what's really going on here? Why are we seeing Japanese series appearing at the same time that there's the specially remade Australian series? Where was Part 2? And what differences in the products are there? Well, as we'll soon find out in the shocking part of Part 2 of the Thomas Wind-Up review, we're going to see how different the toys are sent to different parts of the world. And also, as a bonus feature, I'm going to be putting up these engines against each other to see which is the most powerful, the fastest, and Alrighty, so let's look at the new products now available. We've got Thomas, Percy, and James again. Exactly the same as they were in the original series. But now we've also got Diesel with a cranky face, Bertie, Splatter, Dodge, and Caroline. However, none of these have motors in them, which is interesting, because Bertie and Caroline do in the Japanese versions. Then we've got these 2 carriages appearing once again, as well as this truck set. But we've also got this new carriage, a petrol wagon. We've got this mountain piece, we've got this shed piece here, the overpass, which is back, and now a proper station. Once again, we're followed by the same make out your track, wind up your trains and watch them go, which we can see on here. And if you look at them, they're very similar. However, this says Part 3. Where was Part 2? What was Part 2? Well, I haven't been able to find out. According to the Gacha website, none of these have been released. So it really gets me wondering, does anyone really know where these are coming from? Or do they just get sent over in boxes? They fill up the machines and then leave them to be. So if anyone has Part 2, if they'd like to tell me what actually comes in it, I'd be very interested to find out. But what makes this even more intriguing is that at the same time, at only one machine that I've found, in a particular place, there's been these Japanese, licensed by Takara Tomy, wind-ups, selling for $2 each, whereas these often sell for $4 each. Now, if anyone can actually read Japanese and like to tell me what they say, please feel free to comment. But as we can see, we've got Thomas, Percy, with a different facial expression to what he does there. However, the Thomas has the same facial expression, except he's got the lamp, which is absent on the Australian version. Then we've got James, once again, who has a different facial expression. We've got Gordon with a cranky facial expression, Emily, Salty, Bulstrode, some strange tunnel which I've never seen in a Thomas episode before, Annie and Clarabelle, which are exactly the same as the ones issued in the Australian version, a troublesome truck with a different load and a happy face as opposed to a surprise one, a normal tunnel, a station with the fat controller, a bridge pieces, and hang on, haven't we seen that before somewhere? It's that same piece. So now we can actually see that this piece here has been recolored to make this one, and the bolt taken off. But the question is, why? And these very easy changes are seen again in this other series, which has been released at the same time as this one. This one's number 16, and this one being number 17. Once again, I don't know what it says. Now I've got Thomas, however this Thomas is different. He's got some kind of button mechanism on the top. I'm not quite sure what it does, But according to some instructions that I found, it looks like he's got some kind of sound module with batteries in him, but I don't know how it works. We've got Percy, we've got chocolate-covered Percy, we've got Gordon again, Henry, however this time he's got a wind-up mechanism, unlike the Australian one. We've got Harold, we've got Diesel again, except he looks like he's got slightly more detailing than the one in here. We've got Hector, a troublesome truck with coal load, 2 wagons, which from a chocolate factory, which we've never even seen in the TV series. This shed making another appearance. Here's a Jolly Chocolate Factory, a coal loader, it's a Topham hat and its car, the turntable, which we have already seen, however, interesting to note they're inverted colours. And a recolour of that tunnel. Now what's interesting is that all these engines have side rods, whereas none of these engines do. So why would they go to all the effort of taking the side rods out? Well, as I show you the actual products, we'll soon see that that's not the only thing they're taking out of these sets. This here is the current size of my layout, using almost every piece of track, except some of these extra bridge risers pieces, because I don't actually have anywhere to put them on the track. Now let's have a look at the new items I've received since the last review. Here we go, we've got one of these new carriages. These stickers had to be applied, but they're very much like boxcars, and they're nice looking carriages, however, I don't think they were ever actually seen in a TV series. We can move on now to Dodge, who doesn't have a wind-up motor, but has a coupling on the front instead. Now this got me wondering about whether it was taken out, but after some quick research I discovered that even in Japan, he does not have a wind-up motor. Then as you can see, I received 2 of these carriages. Once again, a nice looking carriages, however it's interesting to note that they don't really represent any of the oil carriages actually seen in the TV series, and they don't have the right logos on them either. Then I got a couple more of these other kinds of wagons. Emily. Very interesting locomotive. Now, it's interesting to note that we've got this. For $2, wind up Emily with her pistons and a tender for the same price as this. Just a carriage. He didn't even come with any track. Which really gets me wondering about how these can be actually valued for money. Now, they're under 200 of the Japanese currency, as we can see there. But I'm not actually sure how much that converts to. But it's still interesting that we can see, even in this, look at the difference in sizes of pods from the same series. One of them is big and round, and the other one has got a traditional flat bottom. So although you're paying the same price, you're getting very much different value, because this was the same price as this, which as we can see is just a coal hopper and doesn't really do anything. Now, you can have a close-up look at this Emily. It's a very nice version of Emily, and it's got a very similar face to the one seen on the Gatcha Thomas version of Emily. It's very accurate to the TV series, except of course the amount of wheels it has, but that's the same with all the wind-up models, much like the Tomy models. It's got a very interesting mechanism with the pistons, which is just a very small version of the Trackmaster, which looks really nice when it's going around the track. What frustrated me about this model is when I got it, as you can see, her dome is actually bent a little bit backwards. But apart from that, a very good model. And no decals, unlike on the Australian ones, had to be applied. They were already on there. And now we can move on to something which is really even more interesting. These stations. They come with this, one tree, which is very reminiscent of the larger battery-powered trains, and this funny little model of the Fat Controller. The model is actually quite good, and I'm surprised that it's something they haven't incorporated into the Australian series yet. It's the station which really got me interested. It's a very nice building of a station, but as you turn it around, what's this? And if you take off the lid before you build it, once you put it together you can't actually take it off. There's actually a space for a screw and what looks like a really small battery. But I can't find evidence of any buttons. And there's certainly no speaker in there now. But what this implies is that when it's being sold in Japan, it's got some kind of battery or sound mechanism in there. Which is really strange because it looks like these have been imported directly from Japan and haven't been changed. yet the sound mechanism's been taken out. So maybe they have been modified for Australia. We don't really know. And if anyone does have any reasoning for why this is there, please comment. Because this station is not the only thing that's got that on there. On closer inspection of this coal hopper, there we can see it again. The screw, the small place which looks like the batteries would go in, and holes, as you can see there, for a speaker. So, was there a sound module ever incorporated as part of this? Maybe we'll never know. And we've got this shed piece, which is really nice, and I think it works really well. Some of these are from the Japanese, and some of these are from the Australian series, but they're all exactly the same. What's interesting is these turntables are just inverted colours, Australian, Japanese. And it gets you really wondering why they'd bother changing something like that, if the product is still the same. And then there we go, the mountain piece, which has been changed colour, and you can sort of even feel and see the groove in which the boulder would sit. What's interesting is this mountain thing actually comes off, and can be placed on either side of the track. But it still only comes with one. Interesting. And last, but definitely not least, are these riser pieces. Now, if we remember back to here, we can see that there are these two rising pieces here. You get one up and one down in each set. And there's this bridge piece here. Now, what really puzzles me about this, more than any of the other things, is that, as you can see here, I got two sets of the risers. And I still have a couple left over in this box. But the thing is that if you didn't actually have the bridge bit, like I did, and you only got one set of risers, you couldn't use them. Because there's nothing to support them in the middle. And so you can say I've got a bit of a makeshift bridge, which the engines don't like that much when they're running on them. So it really gets me wondering why they make such an essential item, such as the bridge and these little uppy-downy bits, and why they would make them separate when they're so important to the operating the train set, especially when you can't choose which one you're getting. So maybe there's something else going on there. Maybe they've finally realised that people are going to keep buying them until they get the set they want. And in some cases, as Leo Can Video found, even buying the whole machine isn't good enough. But now let's have a look at some of the engines running on this layout. Now if there's one thing that hasn't changed, is that even the Japanese can't get this track right, as you can see here. And even then, the engines still run reasonably well, until they derail, like so. And derail again. So as you can see, even in Japan they still haven't got this recipe for the track quite right yet. And they can't even get their bridges right. Look at that. Emily crashes into the coal loader. So evidently there's still many kinks to be worked out with this. Because even the engines designed for it don't work. So if we take Emily off and give another engine a run, we can see the difference between the models. Emily, I must say, is definitely the worst, and she derails a lot more often than both Thomas and James. Here we go. Let's see Thomas. He's actually going a lot faster too, but he's also managed to derail himself. So if we put him back on the track, you can feel that he's still going where Emily has stopped. But he still gets caught on all the lumps and bumps in the track, which really takes out of the play value of these sets. And now we move on to James, who I think is actually the best runner of the three. Alrighty, so here goes James. Seems to be holding up better than any of the other engines. Hasn't derailed yet. However, he has slowed down a lot more than any of the other engines. And there you go, he makes it once round before getting stuck at the same place that Thomas does. So as you can see, these engines are very different runners. But now that we've had a look at all the different parts of these new series, and asked some really serious questions, it's time for something a little bit more exciting. Which of these three engines is the fastest? And in an intense tug of war, speed test, and of course strength test,